What up, Rod? I'm kind of bummed that we didn't get to go right after the game. I had to go watch some 7th and 8th grade basketball is where I was. But man, what a game by the 49ers. Like there's a way that we like to cover these games. You know, we go through the ups and the downs and the positives and the negatives. There's not a lot of negative to this game. Philadelphia 10-1, best team in the league record wise, and we've been talking about a little bit how they seem to not play very well, but then they have Hurts and company, and they're able to come back and win these games. They could not do that today against the 49ers, so the 49ers kind of killed the mystique there a little bit today.
Yeah, if you want to talk about, you want to nitpick, you can look at that first quarter where, I don't know, it was like, to me, it was like, greatest fears realized. The right side couldn't get it done. McKivitz is over there just getting the work given to him by Hassan Reddick and Fletcher Cox. But, and then the Facebook starts. Kyle is the weak link. You can't call plays. The blocking scheme sucks. And there's a quote that got a lot of traction today because at that point it's like, look, here you guys go again. Always assign and blame the wrong shit. It had nothing to do with, it's all execution. It had nothing to do with the plays that were being called. And sure enough, they got it straightened out. And they 5 straight touchdown drives. I mean, it was a clinic. It was really a clinic all the way across, offensively and defensively. I mean, they really couldn't get anything going. And then once I came into the game when they were talking about Armstead being hurt, and then just the matchups, offensive and defensive line, didn't look good for us. But it changes when you score 5 touchdowns in a row. Their game plan changes and they become kind of one-dimensional. And it was just a masterful performance by the 49ers.
What is pretty interesting to me, because when I was looking at this game and I was doing my research, and I was kind of looking at some of the numbers that were out there, the thing that stood out was that the Eagles, middle of the field, they have problems covering. And I was like, oh my gosh, like Kyle's probably salivating. And so my initial thought was, well, now they're going to come out of the gate and they're going to be throw heavy. And I think it's fine to be throw heavy out of the gate, but we know, and we've been talking about this for 2 years now, the play action is really what their offense is predicated on. So when he came out throw heavy, I was like, I was a little worried that if you get behind, then you have to be throw heavy, and then you almost sort of kind of give up on the run. So when the defense was able to hold to 2 field goals, I was like, okay, we can still run the offense. But if they had scored 2 touchdowns, that would have been a lot different. So very thankful that the defense stood like they did in those 2 first drives, because the first quarter, Philadelphia was going down the field at will. It was like, I think they had 124 yards in the first quarter alone or something like that. So thankful to the defense, but because of that, the Niners were able to go back to CMC. I think they had 6 plays and -6 yards on the 6 plays. But then from that moment on, it was a boat race, and the offense has not really, I'm sure if we looked at certain games, the Cowboys and Jacksonville, maybe, could say the offense, maybe looked better, but against this quality of a football team, like, man, that was a clinic, like you said. Now, I told you what was going to happen if the Niners went into Philadelphia and beat the Eagles. We're going to start hearing Brock Purdy for MVP stuff. And it's already happening. I've seen it. I'm waiting to see if the national media latches on, these really popular podcasts, because a lot of these guys have not really turned the corner on Brock yet. It is more the system than the quarterback. Now, you and I are both on the same page about Christian really being the MVP of the offense. And if you watch Debo today, he's kind of the straw that stirs the drink into to take an old Reggie Jackson line. We're going to hear Brock for MVP stuff. I imagine the odds went down for him as far as I'm sure he was behind 5 or 6 quarterbacks, and I think he's leapfrogging a few folks. Are you going to be ready for all of this Brock positivity coming from the national media?
I really don't pay attention to them either way. So for me, it's not going to be that big an issue, because I think that's the way you have to operate, because so many times, I mean, it's just to the point with me that you can see it. These debate shows, it's like you can tell that they sat in a production meeting, and you're going to take this side and you're going to take that side. So it's not like we're trying to get. This is like a truth finding exercise with these dudes. So it's all about likes and trying to go viral. And Brock is hot. Brock is hotter. Yeah, I didn't think you could get hotter than Jimmy G, but guess what? Brock is it. So yeah, you're right. It's coming, but again, we've tread this this terrain. To me, he's not even the offensive MVP of this team. If you want to, I think it's Christian. But if you wanted to argue Trent, I mean, I can't really argue against that either. But nah, it can't be him. And Debo, like you say, he is the straw that stirs the drink. I can get with that. We have a lot of people who play important roles on this team, and Brock is one of them. He absolutely is. But he's certainly not the MVP of the league. Get out of here.
Okay. But let's say the Niners run the table, and let's say Dallas upsets the Eagles next week, and the Niners are the first seed in the NFC. There's going to be play on Brock. I guarantee you there's going to be play on Brock, especially you got the Chiefs losing tonight to the Packers. It's Jalen Hurts. If he loses another game, I think it's going to be the Brockalypse. We're just going to hear nothing but Brock stuff. And I don't know, man.
Here's the thing, though. If all of that, unless the Cowboys strings to loss, I'm telling you, when you talk about quarterbacks and MVPs, it's all about the numbers. And again, what we've never done historically is been talking about average statistics like rating and whatnot. It's completions and touchdowns and yardage. Those counting stats are the ones that carry the day. And don't look now, but that dude is Dak right now. I mean, he is really lighting it up. And if you want to tell me that Dak, it doesn't matter for Dak until the postseason, I agree. But I think he would get, again, and we don't have to even talk about the Cowboy media machine. I think he would get pushed for MVP before Brock would. I just don't think it's going to happen. Now, I could be wrong, because I also said the game was going to go under today. So I definitely can be wrong. But I just don't see it. I hope he does, though. I mean, I say that, but I hope he does. If he could pull that off, that would be awesome. It's just, I just don't think that he profiles as a league MVP.
You look at Brock's numbers versus Dak's numbers; they're very similar. Dak has a few more yards, and he's got 3 more touchdown passes, but and they have the same amount of picks. Brock's completion percentage is 0.1 higher than Dak, so Dak's balling too for sure. All right, I just wanted to throw that out there because we're going to hear a lot about it.
Oh yeah,
and
it's for sure. You're right.
And we talked about this.
I'm gonna love to hear Nick Wright tomorrow. This is gonna be interesting.
I can hear Bill and Sal talk about the odds, talk about possibly placing some bets on Brock. But we're a little bit closer to this, and I feel like some of the Brock stuff now, 116 quarterback rating, 70% completion percentage. Like he's balling out today.
Mm-hmm.
He had a couple of passes that were tipped. He had, one to Ayuk that kind of got jumped a little bit, but other than that, he just made some great throws. But the thing about it is, Niner fans are very, how do you say it? They're overbearing parents in a way for Brock, because the Eagles fans were coming for his head today about how this nerd can't, this nerd's not going to beat us. And, this punk, this little pipsqueak's not going to beat us. And, they're looking at how big he is. And, he's got the hair combed over, like just a normal dude, no craziness, no swag, as the kids would say. But 49er fans are coming to his aid here. And I really enjoy it, because it's almost like, he's our young kid in a sense. This is our guy, and you're going after our guy. And, maybe we can say bad stuff about him. Maybe we can talk about, maybe if he had a little bit more arm. But man, I just see the fan base is just, he's become the number one guy, I think, with the fan base too. It's like, you can't say a bad word about the guy, or the 49er fans are coming for your head.
It's true. I mean, I think it gets a little bit ridiculous, as we've outlined before, and I'm not going to go into it, about how overboard our fan base tends to go with quarterbacks, and especially their comparisons. It goes straight to the top, and I'm just not having it. So I love Brock, and I love what he's doing. Just don't compare him to the GOAT. That's all. I'm good. I'm good if you don't do that. Just don't do that. So yeah.
All right, let's talk about some of the other stuff that happened in this game, and really, offensively, Shanahan. I don't know if he. So in the first 2 series, I was thinking, like, oh man, the Eagles defense, it kind of knows what's coming here. Like they're Brock is looking for his first 2 reads, and they're not there, and then the pass rush is there, and he's rolling out, and he's having to throw it away. And I was like, okay, this could be a problem. They know what Shanahan has scripted. But from that moment on, Shanahan was doing stuff that it was almost like they had never seen before. Like, there's this play down the left sideline to Christian McCaffrey where it looks like Brock's throwing the ball out of bounds. And instead, Christian McCaffrey is catching this ball over his head like he's Willie Mays at the Polo Grounds. Like, just insane play calls. There was one for Kittle where Kittle blocked and then he leaked out into the flat, and they just forgot about him. Like, they didn't even know he was there. There was a couple of short passes to Debo where he just had so much daylight in the middle of the field. And I really think Shanahan, we're going to do our MVPs here in a little bit, but Shanahan's offense and his play calling, I'm not sure he's ever been better with the 49ers other than today. It was fascinating to see what he was dialing up and what the Eagles were expecting, and it just not being there, and it was somewhere completely where they weren't seeing it. It was just fascinating to watch.
Yeah, and I think that's 100% true. And also, he's never had the array of weapons that he has. I was doing a bit of a comparison between the 2019 team and this team, and I've not finished, but defensively, you can make a case. I could make a case for either team. I kind of lean 23, but you can make a case. But offensively, there's just no comparison between this team and that team. It's just like it is just an embarrassment of riches. And I mean, you look at Debo 200 yards, Christian he was damn near 150. And then, you got guys like, a big catch by Jennings running catch and run. But
that was his own version of the brotherly shove. He just shook that guy and pushed him into the ground and went in the end zone.
but quietly, BA is quiet and George is quiet. So every week it can be any one of these guys can be the guy who is the game wrecker. And I mean, we tend to, all of us tend to become prisoners of the moment. But I can't remember a team since, those greatest show on turf teams that had so many viable weapons. Literally guys who could, go for 150 yards on a given day. If you don't, button them up, I mean, and we've got that. We've got anyone. Would you be shocked if I were to tell you, that George went for 120? No. I mean, if BA went for 120, no, any of those can go off on any game, and it's really just game plan and script dependent. I was having a discussion with a gentleman this other 2 weeks ago, and he's like, BA needs to be featured more. I mean, well, hell, he's getting 24% of the target share. I mean, how much more featured can you get? And then, like I said, it is clearly with Kyle, it is script dependent and game plan dependent. Like any one of these guys could be the feature guy any week.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So just to talk about the numbers that you mentioned as far as spreading it out, Christian goes 17 for 93 on the ground, 5.5 and a touch. Debo was 3 for 22, 7.3 per carry. Elijah Mitchell had a couple of spots where he, those fresh legs. He looks like he's doing fairly well. He doesn't look as slow like we thought earlier in the year. And then on the receiving end, spreading 19 receptions around 5 guys. No one had more than 5 catches, and that was BA. As far as the yards per catch, Debo 29 average yard per catch. Kittle was at 17, Jennings 14.7, Christian 13.3. The Niners average yards per catch 16.5 today for the passing. And 4 of those 4 touchdowns. And I mean, Brock Purdy started the game. I think he started the game 0 for 4. From that moment on, he was 19 of 27. So just fantastic all the way around. I mentioned that maybe there's not really anything negative to say. I do have one thing. Okay. And I'm gonna pick on a rook. Jair Brown. There were moments in this game where they needed him to make a tackle, and he did not make that tackle. Now, I'm not going to really give him crap for not being able to tackle AJ Brown, because who can really tackle AJ Brown? Like almost nobody. Yeah. But there were other moments, especially when the game was tight early on, where I think there was that screen to, was it Devonta Smith, where it's like 3rd and 19. So that was set up for Brown to make that play. And he did not make that play, and they went for the 19 yards there to get the first down. So if you want to point a small finger, I do think there were moments today. He took a bad angle on AJ on one of those long passes. He missed that tackle, which was just, they just lined it up for him. All he had to do was make the hit, and he missed. So that was a little bit in the back of my mind. But man, when Mooney Ward and Ambry and Demo are covering the way that they were, like you saw, Jalen Hurts was dropping back to pass, and he was giving himself some room to create, and he was just running and running. He sacked himself like 2 times because the coverage was just so there, and he was trying to make something out of nothing. Those guys, like, Mooney Ward is not going to be my player of the game, but I think he would be. I think he would have been number 2 for me this week. Like, that's how good he played, breaking up passes in the end zone, having to cover AJ Brown pretty much one-on-one for the majority of this game. Like, that was tough stuff, as we saw in the first. He lost them on a couple of post plays, but man, just when they needed it. Just the coverage was there. So it's just, for me, it was just Brown.
And that was, well, I got another one since you brought it up, but that's the game inside the game stuff that I was wondering about. We don't normally shadow guys, but there were, Ward was going with Brown, which I found interesting because that was one of my keys, is I didn't know how much I loved the matchups of Thomas and Lenore against Brown. So it was interesting to see that there were times when they were sending Ward, they were just manning up, which again can be tricky because we aren't a great man team at all. We do our best work in zone, but he played great today. We need a punt returner. if Ray is gonna be out, BBD is not it. He is not it.
You know who his backup was today?
Who?
Juice was his backup.
I'd rather that than
I think Juice was his backup, but Juice probably all he could do was just fair catch no matter what. That's probably what they called on him to do, is just fair catch.
And that is funny that you mentioned that, because that was something I noticed in training camp. It's like Juice is like everywhere. He's like the backup punter. He's like the backup holder. He's the punt guy, taking punts, taking kickoffs. If there's nothing going on, the fullbacks don't really do nothing. So Juice is out there. Juice be out there. Hey coach, I can do whatever you need me to do. I'm half surprised he's not like the backup quarterback too. That dude is something else. But yeah, I don't know what we're gonna do with, if it's gonna be, who's the dude that used to play for the Sneed. I don't know who it's gonna be, but if Ray is lost us for any amount of time at all, does Debo catch punts?
Well, that's what I was gonna ask you, because he was the kickoff returner today, and he did really well.
Oh man, he is a daring kick returner. He doesn't give a damn. I'm going. And I mean he's Debo, so I mean that's not a bad idea most of the time. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I just saw that Ray was inactive. I didn't even see what the injury was.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know what it was either. And it was kind of, I don't even know when did he get hurt? I guess the rib
I didn't
injury.
hear about it this week. I didn't hear anything about it until the inactive were announced.
So he didn't practice Wednesday and Thursday, and on Friday he was limited.
Didn't even know that.
Yeah. So Huh.
Okay.
Well, somebody's got to step up, and maybe it is Debo,
Yeah,
but you also don't want to get him hurt on stuff like that. So
that's true. That's true.
Ronnie Bell did get away with a hell of a hold on one of Debo's
Oh yeah, he did.
screenplays. he rode the safety. What's the safety's name? Safety was in a lot of people's faces today. He was pretty upset, and Ronnie held him and then drove him to the ground, and then dude tried to get up, and Ronnie did not allow him to get up, so he's like riding him. He's like piggyback riding him. So that was quite the play. But the one thing about the referees, and except for one moment, which we'll talk about here in a second, the referees did let them play. They knew that this was going to be a really physical game. They knew that these teams were going to go at each other. There were moments in the season where when Mooney would be physical like he was today, where he'd get flagged for pass interference, and he did not get flagged today. There were some holds. Nick Bosa, who's the tackle's name? Lane Thomas.
Lane Johnson.
Mm-hmm. Lane Johnson. He at one point he had like a shoulder lock on Nick and like took him down like it was like a jiu-jitsu match. And they're just letting that stuff go. I was like, hey, that bodes well for us, I think.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure. Until it didn't.
Yeah. And we'll talk about that in a second, but I want to show, because I was kind of wondering where my guy was. Robert Ramos, who I haven't heard from him in a little bit. He hasn't been in the Discord either. He said there's one play where we motioned Kittle and Juice to the left side along with Trent. I almost felt bad for the Eagles D pre-snap because I knew there was no stopping CMC as he went 10 plus there. That play where they would just bring people to the left side, I was just like, okay, they want this, and they want it in this place, and they want to show Philadelphia, if we do this, you guys have no chance. This was their version of the brotherly shove. Mm-hmm. Yes, this was exactly their version of it, which you stack that left side, and the Eagles, it was almost like, okay, like, just don't go for 20 like that. That's what it looked like. And that's when I knew that, again, that Kyle was like just a step ahead, and it's just like, just run this play every time, because they're not gonna be able to stop it. And one thing, you go back to their last two games, having to come back against Kansas City and then having to come back against Buffalo. Their defense was on the field for 92 plays last week. And so to me, I was just like, once it was in the second half, I was like, man, just give them a dose of CMC and Debo, because these guys are beat tired. So much so that the young rookie stud Carter was like weeping on the sideline. Did you see that?
Mm-hmm.
He was so frustrated.
I didn't, when the line came out, and flipped so quickly, because it opened -2.5 Eagles, and then it immediately flipped the other way. And I was trying to dig into why, and then it was during that research that I was like, oh, they've played 3 games in 13 days, so this is it's a tough stretch for them. And I'm not making any excuses for them, because that's the schedule, and you got to play the schedule that's there. But yeah, I had the same feeling you did, that like once the train started rolling, it just seemed to me like if we just keep leaning on them, the dam is going to break. And it did. It just, we broke them. So, for whatever that's worth, because, fans and the media, we're going to do the same thing we did at 5-0 against the Cowboys. And it was interesting to hear Kyle mention it back then, was that, they started kind of believing their press clippings, like, wow, maybe we are pretty good. And then we know what happened after that. So hopefully we can, they celebrate tonight or whatever, but then, they don't let the noise from the outside. It's not us, because I don't think we have much of an effect, but I do think when the media comes in there and they start being all fawny and gushy, that it can impact. These dudes are human, and
Mm-hmm.
if you start to believe that, maybe this is I don't think that, that's stuff that we can talk about as fans in the media. I don't think it's smart for the players to start thinking about how special a season this could be or that kind of stuff. I think they just need to focus on the task at hand and worry about Seattle. You can't I really don't think they can get too big picture on stuff like that. So hopefully we'll see. Hopefully we handle this bit of success better than we did that bit of success in October.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. The thing that continues to come to mind when we talk about wins like this and what they portend, in January. I don't know why. The first thing when people started talking that talk online, the first thing that popped into my mind is, man, we had the title and the deed, and we still do, to the Rams, except for that one time. I think literally, I think McShay has only beaten us like once, and that is the one, the only one because I would definitely 100% give them the other 11 wins.
Yeah, exactly.
If we could have that one.
So, yeah, I mean, that was Trent playing on one leg until he couldn't, and
just all, and then was my man Aaron Donald just going ballistic there at the end. we just couldn't block him, which he's an all-timer. So yeah, it's unfortunate. So I just say that to say that while this is a great win, I don't because I literally saw somebody post this, that I'm glad we won this one because we know we can beat the Cowboys in the playoffs, and now we know we can beat the Eagles. Like, whoa. I do not know that this does not tell me that 6 weeks from now, if that's the matchup, that I hope the Niners are able to expunge this from their memory and not think that oh well, this if we see them in the playoffs, that well now this is just a walkover, because it don't work. It just doesn't work like that. So yeah, it's a great win, but I'm not buying Super Bowl tickets in Las Vegas yet.
Let's talk about the craziest play of the game here, one that left me pretty frustrated, which was Dre Greenlaw came in at the end of a play to, I think it was Devonta Smith. Was it Devonta Smith who he suplexed?
Yeah.
Gave him a suplex, and I thought it was, I guess the way that he lifted him off the ground when maybe the momentum was stopped. I didn't know if the whistle had blown or not, but he gives him a suplex and he gets a 15-yarder, and they start trash talking, and they were trash talking all game long. So they're near the sidelines, and Dom, the security guard, or the head of security, Dom, he was on the sideline, and Dre was pointing at somebody, and in pointing at somebody, he I guess he poked Dom in the face or something, but Dom had also like grabbed him or touched him or something. And so Dre doesn't get the 15-yarder. He gets the full Draymond Green and gets ejected from the game. And Dom, the security guy, also had to leave the sideline. But that was wild. Kyle was pissed. He was like, how could we have non-players instigate stuff, and then the player is the one who gets kicked out? What did you think about that whole scenario?
Well, it was 15 yards because it was Dre off the rip. So that was what I thought, was that, he's never, just kind of like his namesake, Draymond, he's never getting the benefit of doubt in that circumstance on the suplex. It's just that's a wrap there. And then, I don't know why that dude Dom is there in the middle of the mix like that, but you can't put your hands in his face. I don't know that he intentionally did it, but he did it. And so he's got to go. But again, I've said it before and I'll say it again. If the inspiration that he gives us, if the cost of that is that we got to take a 15-yarder every now and then and an ejection, I would not ever want to be the one trying to dial or ratchet that back, because I believe, I don't know as much about Dre Greenlaw as I do Draymond Green, but I know that the way Draymond Green plays, if you were to try to take that element of his game away, we're not 4-time champions, and he's not a Hall of Famer. He does a lot of smart things, and he's a great defender, and all of those things that Draymond Green brings, but that edge is part of it. It's all part of the package, and you can't separate that. So I believe the same thing to be true of Dre Greenlaw. That edge that he plays with probably has a lot to do with why he is who he is. So, you got to kind of take the bitter with the sweet. So,
yeah, it's funny because Greg Olson was saying how this could be a turnaround for the Eagles because it got the crowd back into the game. And I know my dad was kind of bothered with Olson. He almost felt like Olson was kind of rooting, saying that this is going to get the Eagles back in the game. And for one, the broadcaster's job is literally to keep the people watching the game.
Exactly.
So you're trying to kind of make sure that both teams are still competing. But the other thing is, I didn't see it, but it sounds like they did some sort of story on him or something, because they were very familiar with who he was. I had no idea who they were talking about early on. I was like, who's the guy that looks like what is the big dude's name from now I'm forgetting the sitcom, Kevin something or other. He just is.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, it just looks like a big stocky dude. Yeah, King of Queens. There you go. Mm-hmm. That I was like, he kind of looks like that guy. But then I get, he was the security. I just assumed that they had done a story, or they had talked about him earlier because they were very familiar with him.
Yeah, they were talking about he gave them a dinner recommendation.
Okay, that's what it was.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
it was just a weird circumstance, and I know a lot of people I like Olsen. I think he's good. And like you say, number one, that is part of their job, is to make sure that you don't turn. Al Michaels is the greatest at that. When those stinkers Sunday night games or Thursday night games, he's like, trying to come up with reasons for you not to go watch something else. But yeah, so that's their job. But also, momentum is a funny thing, and they're at home, and you just never know that something like that could be the touch point to something else. Well, it didn't. It turned out that wasn't the case, but I don't think that's not the craziest theory in the world. And I didn't hear it as him rooting for that to happen, but you see it happen all the time. More probably in the college game than in the pro game, but you see it happen where a play or two can change the complete outlook of a game. Mm-hmm. Again, like I say, it didn't happen this time, but it wouldn't have shocked me if it did, if they had rallied a little bit after that, but it wasn't to be.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we look toward the next few games here, Niners in Seattle. Now, I would imagine Pete probably wants to have a good showing here. He doesn't like losing to the Niners, especially the way that the Niners beat them last time. So I would imagine, if Pete has any tricks left in the bag, because Seahawks are a little sputtering. They've lost 3 in a row. And actually, the Rams have won 3 in a row to get back to 500. So the Rams are sneaking back into this thing. But, if the Seahawks have any life as far as the playoffs are concerned, next week is very important for them. Now, there are 4 teams that are not division leaders that are all 6-6. So you got the Rams, the Seahawks, the Vikings, and the Panthers all at 5 playing 500 football. So there's going to be lots of finagling for the last couple of playoff spots through those teams. So this is a big game for the Seahawks. Again, like you said, you kind of hope that the 49ers don't, revel in their greatness right now and all of a sudden, not look forward to next week and take care of business, because for the rest of the season, their schedule is Cardinals, and Kyler is doing Kyler stuff. They're still not a good football team, but
they play hard. They play hard. I'll give them that. Yes,
they do. And Kyler, Kyler screws with the Niners. He's just kind of that guy. And then the biggie is the Ravens on Christmas night.
Yeah. That's so that. That is, I don't like to take anybody lightly. And like you say, that last game of the season could end up having more significance for the Rams than it does for us. So, you never want to take anything for granted. But, realistically, that Ravens game is like the last, like real team on our schedule. Team that I think legitimately, is a team. Seattle is a feisty little bunch, but
what the Rams are going to say? We put 36 on Cleveland today.
That is impressive. No lie. There's no way to sugarcoat or front on that. And when Matt Stafford and Puka and Kupp get it going, I mean, they can light it up. And that Williams kid, the running back, all of a sudden the Rams don't look as cooked as they did at the beginning of the season. And it's funny how all of that works out. Teams like the Packers, teams like, I know the Broncos lost today, but teams that, in September we had written off for dead, it just shows you the folly of doing that. I mean,
Roger Goodell's dream scenario, right? Everyone's
exactly.
Everyone's just 8-8 going into week 17.
Yeah, I mean, and that is that's a real thing. So it's the Rams. Like I said, last game of the season. We always get their best. And hell, I think all of our division opponents are teams that at different points in time we have had issues with beating. So you really can't take any of them for granted. We can't afford to take any of them for granted at all, because we really need to run the table. We don't need to. I think if we can finish 13 or 14-3, I guess it is now, we'll be in a very, very good position for that number 1 seed, regardless of whatever else happens. And then if we were to pick up one more loss around, at some point, then, that puts us in much more. I feel much better at 14-3 than I do at 13-4 in terms of getting that number 1 seed.
And if you are looking ahead, Cowboys at home next week against the Eagles. Cowboys are hot, but it's not the Seattle still put 35 on them on Thursday. And then they have the Eagles. I mean, then they have the Seahawks. Then it gets kind of bad, though.
Yeah.
They still have to play the Giants twice.
Tommy DeVito. Yeah.
But, they get Kyler as well on New Year's Eve. So I think the hope is these next 2 weeks, if the Eagles are going to lose again, these would be the next 2 weeks. So I don't know if I can actually be a Cowboys fan, but I kind of have to, right? You're kind of rooting for the Cowboys to win that game because a week off is, I think, okay to have to root. If we get that treat of having a week off and not having to play in the first round, then I think my soul can be okay with rooting for the Cowboys for 1 week. But then, the Seahawks the following week is the other opportunity because that game is also in Seattle. So, and then the Eagles, 2 out of their last 3 games for the rest of the season is at home. So, it should be very dramatic. People be watching, everyone will be watching Sunday night next week, see what happens. But as far as you and I, you have an event to go to next weekend in the evening on Sunday. And I think I'm going to the game, actually. Me and both of my boys are going to be at Levi's. So we may have to figure out a different day to do our show following next week's game. So you and I will have to talk through that to figure out what's the best. Because you're going to go see Black Thought.
Yes. He has a book out, The Upcycled Life. I don't know if you're into that type of thing. It is. I'm like halfway through, and it's really good. And so he's doing a signing and like a discussion about the book next week in San Francisco. So I'm definitely going to be in attendance for that. So yeah, that's awesome that you're going to get to a game. I'm going to try to figure something out. I really want to go to at least one this year.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be good. Yeah, we'll figure something out in terms of getting something out for our people to chew on.
Yeah, we'll let people know in the Discord what we figure out. Even if we have to record it, a day or 2 later, we'll do that.
Yep.
It just, you don't want. There's a certain time in which we can do this late in the evening, like we are tonight. But later than this, it gets to be too late. So
yeah.
All right. Before we get out, we got to go MVPs, and there's a plethora of folks to choose from, and I'm just going to give a list off the top of my head. I think you can go Mooney Ward, like I said. I don't think Fred Warner's statistics were necessarily gaudy. He only had 4 tackles. But if you watch the game, you know that his job was to basically be the spy on Jalen Hurts.
Mm-hmm.
And Jalen Hurts had 7 carries for 20 yards. So that tells you the job that Fred did. CMC had he had a normal game, nothing, no game breaker that he's had in the past. But again, like that, he was the engine, especially late when they were trying to close. And then there's Debo. There's George for big plays. There's Brock. I am leaning Debo, Mooney, and Brock. Those would be my top 3. What about you?
I love Debo. I love Mooney. I would probably in that 3rd spot. It would probably be George, but not because not only for what he gave us in the pass game, but in the run game, he was such a huge part of, as we talked about in the pod about, that overloaded left side, and he was a big part of that. He was like, a 3rd tackle out there, sealing the edge, and doing that. So he would buy, and then Brock, you can't beat, Brock's efficiency again. He is just, we want to ding him for the slow start, but I don't put on him. I put that on the pressure that he was getting. But then he was unfazed by it and just came out firing and just taking. Again, that's the thing, my man. It's not like it's a whole lot of back shoulder, tight window type stuff. He's just taking what the defense gives him, and that's his job, and he's doing a wonderful job at it. So he definitely deserves an honorable mention. But those would be my three, and I just don't think that there's no question. Debo is my player of the game. You get 200 yards of total offense is, it's kind of hard to beat.
Yeah. You add the kick return.
Oh, and stuff. The kick return.
He was he was the all around player, special teams, offense. And when you talk a big game, being able to back it up is important. Because there's a lot of guys who will talk a big game and then, when it comes to the moment, not play as well. But he
did not shrink.
He did not shrink. He walked the talk today. So, all right. Next week we got Seattle. So we'll figure that out. We'll figure out that schedule. Let folks know. And man, I would hope that it does get better than this, but. What a game today. I think all 49er fans should kind of sit back and just appreciate this one because it's going to be hard.
It was a great game.
This was a meeting of the two giants in the NFC, and one of the giants just smacked the other one. So Niners came to play today, and they looked impressive. So I'm just waiting for all the Niners love too, because it's going to be there, and I have to still have my brain, unbiased. I got to think about this, for real. I can't only just be a fan here. So that's the hard part about talking about a team that is really good, because you just want to be, you just want to talk about the praise and talk about the players who are playing so well. And that's why I got to throw in a Jair Brown, and if you wanted to throw another one, first two series is Burford was getting his butt kicked.
Ooh.
And then he gets a false start. I'm like, you can't do both. You can't keep getting your butt kicked and then false start. Like, you just can't. Like, yeah. So, but they played a lot better as, again, the Eagles defense was so worn out as it was. So, all right, we will be back at some point next week, and I am, I'll have this will be my first look at the team in person. Gosh. I think it was Bosa's rookie year was the last time I was there in person. So it's going to be a blast. I love going to the games in person because you just see different stuff that you don't see on the television. So we'll have a lot to talk about the next time we chit chat.
Yep.
All right. For Rod, I am a Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.